stop. If you're a GEPF member, pause and give me just a minute of your time. Did you know that from 1 September 2024, as a GEPF member, you could tap into up to 30,000 rands of your hard-earned pension savings due to the new two-pot system? Now, sounds tempting, doesn't it? But what if I told you there's a darker secret lurking beneath the seemingly convenient option? A secret that could drastically alter your financial future. Hi, I'm Devon Iker, a Retire vs. Resign specialist, and I have a crucial message for every GEPF member. The upcoming changes to your pension fund aren't just numbers on a page. They're decisions that could affect you and your family's life for years to come. Now, while accessing a part of your savings early might seem like a relief, the implications run much deeper, and they're not as clear-cut as you'd hope. Now, in this video, I'm going to be diving into the two-part system, but I'll also explore how it works with traditional pension funds and retirement annuities, and what makes the GEPF stand out in ways that you might not even expect. So before you take any decisions about accessing your GEPF savings, it is imperative to understand the full scope of what's changing and how it could affect you. Now, whether you're leaving years from now or exiting in the next month or two, understanding these changes is essential to safeguarding your future. This is information that every GEPF member must know before 1st September 2024. Now, let's get started. Now, I got to pre-frame this and tell you I'm using an example here in my calculations, and it's just an estimate. I want to give you an idea as to how the fund is going to operate, but again, it's just an estimate. Now, GEPF is a defined benefit fund. You might have, if you've watched my videos previously, you would have heard me saying this. And it means that everything works according to a formula. So even something like the two-part system coming into effect, it means that GEPF has to adjust their formula in order to incorporate this. Now, I'm going to use an example. Again, remember, it's an example. I don't want you to get caught up with the math. I want you to understand the process so that you know how this could apply to you. Now, part of the formula takes into account the following. It takes into account your years of service, so how long you've been there, and it takes into account your salary, right? Or the notch as it's often referred to. So in my example, let's say the years of service works out to, 25. Again, it's just an example because I want to illustrate a particular point to you. And let's say your salary works out to 30,000. Now, bear with me. I know it's ridiculous to work with this because I'm working with an annual salary of 30,000. I'm deliberately using 30,000 because that is the amount that you can access from the two-part system. And I'll show you just now how the system works, right? Which means when GEPF is calculating your benefits, let's just assume a simple formula. We're going to take 25 times 30,000, and that's going to give you your benefit, right? Now I'm going to bring up a calculator so that we're able to see this and do the calculation with you. So 25 years of service times 30,000 Rand is the income. So this is 750,000. So this is what you would see as, let's call it your resignation value, sitting at 750,000. Now, keep in mind, I keep reminding you, this is an example, okay? I just want you to understand the framework of how I'm going about calculating it. Now let's look at a traditional pension fund or a traditional pension fund, how that operates, and I'll circle back and show you how it would take place on the GEPF side. Now remember, there's before and after two-part system. So after two-part system, what would take place is on a traditional fund, right? You would have 3 pools of money that's available. One pool is a savings benefit, and this is where you could access up to 30,000 Rands cash. Then you have a portion of your money that would be sitting in a vested pool. So in essence, this should be made up of money that was there before two-part came in effect, right? That is what's called a vested pool. And I'll use an example just now for you to get a bit more clarity. And then you'll have a pool called a retirement pool. And you don't, let's not confuse this one with retiring and resigning, right? Just think of it as a retirement pool, money that you can access when you get to retirement age. Now, in my example, let's assume you have a retirement annuity and your retirement annuity sits with this value. I'll call it 300,000. It's sitting inside there. Now, before two-part, 300,000 is in there. Post two-part, what's going to happen is you'd have that 300,000 flowing into the vested fund. So 300 sitting in there, and they will then move a portion into the savings, 30,000 into the savings. So in essence, technically what would take place is you'll have 270,000 that's sitting inside a vested pot, and you'll have 30,000 that's sitting inside a savings pot. Now, where does the retirement pool kick in? It's simple. On your contributions going forward, let's say every month you are paying a premium of, I'm just using an example, 1,000 Rand. What would happen is a portion of this money goes towards retirement and a portion would go towards a savings benefit, right? This is post 2-pot now, how this would take place. Now let's circle back. There you have money that's sitting inside of your savings that you can now access. And if you had to access this money, remember it's a retirement annuity. So let's put this up here. This is a retirement annuity. It's traditional, right? It's not GEPF with the formulas. So retirement annuity, you can access the savings, it's paid out, doesn't interfere with your vested pot, doesn't interfere with your overall benefit, right? In essence, all it means is your fund value was sitting at 300,000, you took out 30,000 and you have 270,000. It's very, very straightforward to work that one. What makes GEPF different is it's all based according to formulas. So from a formula perspective, remember we touched on it here, your benefits are calculated based on years of service as well as your salary. And I used a very basic example. I multiplied these two to give me this figure of 750,000. So again, let's do the same thing before and after 2-pot system to give us an idea. Now, post 2-pot system, you know that there'll be 3 pools. So inside of your savings, you would have a portion sitting here. Now, I'm assuming this, right? We'll only get to know exactly how GEPF plays this out post 2-pot. We'll know how the system has calculated it and what benefits went where. But ideally, how this should work is, remember we're dealing with a figure of 750,000, 30,000 going to savings. So the balance is 720,000 that should sit in the vested pot. I'm saying should sit in there, right? Then you've got another portion, which is here, and that's now the retirement pool. Now, what would take place from a contributions perspective? So each time you are contributing an amount, post 2-pot system, each time you're contributing, it would be split into these two, right? Your vested pot should be the funds that were there before the 2-pot system came in effect. Now, let's just assume that you decided to access the savings pool. So whatever's sitting in that pot, you want to withdraw the saving, that amount. Now, you know it's been spoken about, this benefit is going to be taxed. It would be added onto your salary and you'll be taxed accordingly, right? Now, you want to be mindful because that could push you up a tax bracket. Now, there is something else that's hidden, which I shared with you at the start of the video, because this is not so easy for us to see. And what's actually going to transpire here is on GEPF side, because it's all based on a formula, it's not straightforward where they would adjust this value by 30,000. What would happen is they would have to adjust the formula. And when they adjust the formula, one of the things that they could adjust is your years of service. So instead of just minusing 30,000 as I've just done it here in a retirement annuity, straightforward, simple calculation, on GEPF side, they would have to look at adjusting the formula. Now, you've noticed here, 25 is the years of service, and I put a salary of 30,000 deliberately, right? And now you'll see why. If you're accessing 30,000 here, in essence, you're accessing 1 year of your salary. So what would happen eventually is your salary, your years of service won't be seen as 25 in my example. It would be seen as 24 years of service. Now, let's say at a later stage, you are going to be exiting, say 5 or 10 years down the line, and obviously your salary would have increased, right? This salary portion would have increased. Say your salary even jumps up to 50,000 in my example. So what would take place is when GEPF is running the calculation and they're doing their formula, you would now have 50,000 times 24 years of service, not 25 years of service. So in essence, what happened in the beginning is you lost a year of service because they needed to deduct 30,000. But as time goes by, because of it being a formula, technically it's not a loss of 30,000. You're actually losing significantly more than that. See, now I know this can be confusing, especially considering that GEPF is a defined benefit fund. But as a simple rule of thumb, what I want you to know is that when you are accessing money from GEPF, even if it's 30,000 coming out of your savings pool, technically in the long term, you might be worse off because the amount that would be reduced might be well more than 30,000. Now, another factor that you want to bear in mind is there might be mass exits from the fund. So keep in mind, a lot of other GEPF members might want to access their money. And GEPF sits with a big pool, say approximately 1.2 million members sit inside this pool. And if a lot of members are accessing money from the pool, let's just say, in my example, 200,000 of these members start to access the 30,000 from the 1st of September. This is a huge total, right? It's a total of 6 billion, which GEPF have the funds for. Here's the problem though. That funds that GEPF is sitting with is invested, and it's invested in the markets. So what happens post 2-pot where a lot of uncertainty, markets happen to dip, and GEPF still has to release this money to its members, which means they might be selling shares at a lower price, and that could affect all of the members within the fund, right? We've seen this previously in terms of formula changes or actuarial factors that got adjusted, things like that. So you want to be mindful. I encourage you, it's important as a community, GEPF have to stick together. GEPF members, share this video with other members. Encourage them on not withdrawing any of the funds. Make them aware that there are 2 tax implications that are there if members have to access it. The first being, whatever's taken out, if it's 30,000, it's going to be added to their salary. It could push them up a tax bracket, so they're going to pay some tax on it. And the second being, later on, it could come back to bite them because now it affects the years of service, and it could result in them losing much more than 30,000, as I've explained in the video. Now, post a comment below. I want to hear from you, right? What's your take on the 2-pot system? Is this something that you feel is going to be beneficial for members? Is this something that you feel is not going to be beneficial? Post a comment below. Tell me exactly what your thoughts on it. And if you found the video helpful, give me a thumbs up so know that the content is very good. And also hit the subscribe button so that you're able to get access to these videos as soon as I produce them.